What Anderson Optimization is we have created a platform that helps to renewable developers to automate their entire early stage front end land siting and green fielding activity process.
The Solar Podcast is brought to you by Continental Energy Solutions. I'm your host, Tim Montague. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a great tool for solar developers. My guest today is Jake Anderson, the founder and head of business for Anderson Optimization. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Thanks, Tim. Really appreciate it. And yeah, looking forward to the discussion today.
I was so happy to meet you at the Midwest Expo earlier this year, which was virtual due to COVID. That was interesting.
That was,
Um,
yeah, the avatars,
and
that was unique.
You're one of the lasting relationships, new relationships that I made out of that event. So I was grateful to have attended. And but tell our listeners a little bit about how you got into the renewable space, and then we'll give an intro to the company as well.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Yeah, looking forward to it. So, yeah, the way I got into energy is a little bit unique. I actually come from a non-energy background. Prior to founding Anderson, I came actually from a corporate finance, Fortune 500 background in the CPG industry. So, really not an energy background. But in college, I actually went to school in addition to finance. Also had tried to study for entrepreneurship. Always wanted to start my own company. So after a few years in industry and kind of big corporate, I really was angling to start my own company. And this is around kind of called 2016-ish timeframe. At that same time, my cousin, who happens to be my technical co-founder, was finishing up his PhD in what's called power system modeling and optimization. We'll start to get in a little more once we get into it, but he basically had this technical skill set for the energy industry and wanted to create a company around that. So we started to get talking, and given my business background and his technical background, seemed like a really good opportunity to sort of join forces with these complementary skill sets. And we basically decided right around the summer of 2016 to basically create a software company to help deliver these new technical tools that he was studying in his PhD work and really bring them into industry and with some novel software. So that's how I initially got into it. Again, really a minimal energy background prior, but since then I've really learned a lot in the space, especially in this renewable development area that we'll talk a little bit more once we get into the company.
Excellent. Yeah, everybody, that's one of the things I like about the renewables space is there is a lot of diversity, people from very different backgrounds. Of course, it is an engineering heavy industry,
Hmm.
but I myself am a biologist,
Sure.
and I regret not getting an engineering degree. I was pre-engineering for a few years and then I switched, but anyway, so there's room for all kinds of professionals. And for anybody who
Absolutely.
doesn't know this, this is a super fast growing industry. We were talking in the pre-show about how crazy busy you are. We've had a banner year here in Illinois. It is a boom and a bust. And so as far as like community solar, which is one of our favorites, we're going to have a pause for a few years, but that's also the nature of this. It's very geographic and it's very wavy. It comes and
Definitely.
goes in specific geographies. So
Absolutely.
um, we now have a wave of utility scale solar happening in Illinois and surrounding states, Indiana, Wisconsin, Iowa.
Yep.
The MISO territory is really catching on,
Hmm.
and so there's such a need for more better tools for developers and for installers. So I'm looking forward to bringing your tool to our listeners. So why don't we dive in? Tell us about Anderson Optimization, what it is, and what is the market that you're serving.
Absolutely. No, happy to talk about that. And I think you hit the nail on the head that, renewable energy as just a pure technology at this point has been around for quite a while, but it's finally gotten to a level of maturity and adoption that it's really about like, how can we do this whole thing better? So really what Anderson Optimization is we have created a platform that helps to renewable developers to automate their entire early stage front end land siting and green fielding activity process. Basically, what our platform does is it takes them from when they had that general area of interest. So let's say they were targeting a developer, generally in Minnesota for a certain RFP, and they know they may want to be in southern Minnesota. So we basically take them from having just that very high level idea of where they want to go all the way down to having a short list of quality land opportunities with all of their necessary outputs. So things such as their buildable area calculations, their constraint maps to know exactly where they're going to put the array, all the landowner information so that they can actually contact these landowners to really set up their lease agreements and really do that entire process in just of a matter of 10-15 minutes, even if these users do not have any sort of technical or what's called GIS background. GIS is like mapping data, which is very important for this process. Traditionally, the tools in this space are very clunky. There are a lot of silos. You're having to manage and just really deal with a lot of different data. There's really no automation in the process. So even if you had all that data, there was traditionally a ton of work and time really going into just doing a lot of manual overlay analysis, mapping, and it was really hard to keep everyone on the same page. We're basically able to take those kind of weeks or days of work, and like I said, put it down to just a few minutes. That really, because of that, we're able to really help developers kind of hit on all three key values. We're able to help them decrease costs because they don't have to have nearly the headcount to really manage these processes. We help them increase revenue because they're able to put more projects into their pipeline quicker. We're also just help to general efficiency. It's a consolidated platform, so everyone's working from the same platform on the same page, and it's all in real time. So it just really adds an efficiency. We're able to drive a lot of value for their businesses to really help them just optimize this entire part of their company.
Hence the optimization. I like
Indeed.
that, and I agree. You know, there's a plethora of tools. There are a few tools that are truly integrative and make it easy to bring multiple kind of functions under a single umbrella. Um, so I'm a developer. I have a general, uh, area of interest, say
Yep.
ERCOT or MISO. I may even have identified some key assets, substations, or landowners that are interested in, or that are interesting to
Yep.
me, and that's where you kind of that's the point of entry. So
Yep.
but why don't we just dive in and have you give us a demo on how that works?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is we have them where they're at that level of just having a general area. And traditionally they would have to manage a bunch of different tools, data sets to really do this. And even once they had those tools and data sets, then they would have to do all of the analysis manually. And our whole platform basically allows them to still own the process internally. For a lot of developers, they really want to own that process, but it basically gives them structure to do that. So yeah, I'd be happy to walk through the platform and talk through it. And as I pull this up too, what we've always found to be helpful is kind of to just frame this in terms of a real world story, for example. So the way to think of this kind of use case right now is, let's say we were targeting an RFP in Minnesota. So right now I'm in a Minnesota team, but this is a nationwide platform, so any market of interest we can absolutely support with the exact same process. Traditional tools, you kind of have to recreate the wheel every time. Let's say I was targeting an RFP, kind of southern Minnesota, 20 to 25 megawatts. And that's really what we're trying to do. And all we really know is we want to be in southern Minnesota to set this project up. And we're going to basically be able to allow users to do that quickly. So I'll create a project. You'll see we have three typical flows. We have our substation and transmission projects, which are really your greenfielding exercises. So finding parcels nearby a sub, parcels that intersect a line. Those are really two of the most common strategies. But we also have what we call a land project, which is more of, sometimes you might know a specific landowner and you know that they have 300 acres and they want to say, is this suitable for solar? We, of course, allow you to automatically assess those as well. Today, we'll just do a greenfielding exercise. So I will just call this, podcast project. We'll give it a name. We can add staging or other details as well. But then I just hit next. And so what you'll see is right out of the gate, what we've done is we can visualize all of these substations here in this pinkish color. And what we want to do then is, like I said, we're maybe interested in generally southern Minnesota. So maybe I was interested in a project near Tracy, Minnesota. I can just come in and I will go ahead and select this substation that I might want to target. Sometimes, though, if you're doing more of a macro exercise, you might want to target multiple at once. So I can also just select that substation. We even have a tool called this polygon select, where we can actually just trace out a macro area and grab all of the substations at once, so we can really brute force this approach. But for simplicity today, we'll just do a 2 substation project. We then hit create. So we've now created this project. You'll see it's targeted on these two subs. Once again, this is a cloud-based application, so it automatically saves and tracks your work in real time. So it's a very efficient way to do this process. And you don't have to worry about a lot of traditional tools are notorious for crashing. And you lose like 3 hours of work because you forgot to hit file save. For us, it's all done automatically. But now we have these two subs, so we actually want to start our greenfielding. So we want to maybe round this project out. So let's say I wanted to see all of the transmission lines in this section, in this area. I just come to my asset search. Let's say I want to find all the transmission lines within 5 miles of these subs. I just type 5 and I hit run. And our system will go through and it will automatically scan and pull in any of the lines that are within that radius. You'll see they're visualized here. We could also look for alternative subs or power plants, but I'll just skip ahead to the parcel since that's the most relevant. From there, what I can do is I will come in and I will do my parcel search, and the same idea. Let's say I wanted to find all of the parcels maybe within 1.5 miles of these substations that were at least 125 acres. We can then hit get count. Our system will tell us how many parcels meet that criteria. It looks like there are 31. We then hit run and our system will automatically pull those into our project. So at this point, we can see we have our parcels here visualized onto the map, and I'll scroll up so you can see that a little better. And we also have those parcels in a list format with all of that summary contact information, land use codes, mailing addresses, and those are all also visualized in a table format as well.
Can I stop you for a sec?
Absolutely.
Is this built on top of ArcGIS, or what is the GIS tool?
Yeah, great question. So with this, it's a mix of technology. So we've kind of built the GIS backend on our own. We do use Google's Google Earth Map interface so that you can actually, where you're actually visualizing, we do use the Google API. But a lot of the backend infrastructure we've really built on our own. And then all of the layers that we're pulling in, we basically integrate our service with the actual servers those are hosted on so that we can live integrate with those different layers, which we'll see in a moment. So it's really a mix of technologies that we've used to really build this. We use AWS and Google Cloud as part of our backend to really support the infrastructure.
And the parcel layer, where's that from?
Yeah, absolutely. So we integrate and we actually partner with a third-party parcel data provider. They are called Report All USA. They're really the leaders in this space. And one of the big benefits there is we actually directly integrate with their system and have a unique kind of partnered business model. Traditionally, when you kind of buy parcel data, you really have to do this at a county or a state level where you basically get a one-time download of all the parcels in that county. But the big issue there is you're basically paying for a lot of data you don't need because if you're in the middle of a big city, you're not actually going to put an array there. And additionally, the other piece is once you get that one-time download, it immediately starts to become stale. Whereas within our system, you're always pulling the most up-to-date directly from their system, and they're constantly making updates. So it's a really beneficial partnership and really helps our customers reduce the need for parcel fees that they traditionally incurred.
Got it.
Absolutely. Any other questions before we continue on the demo?
No, I think I'm good.
Wonderful. So I'll just resume that screen share then. So once again, we've got this project. We have all these parcels. So this is when that GIS analysis would really typically come into play. So what we can do is if I just hover over this layer section, like I said, we do have a full-scale traditional GIS platform built in. We've got about 50 to 60 different layers, which you can see all visualized here at a nation level. And we have a number of state level layers as well. So we do offer more of a traditional approach where you can, of course, overlay any layers that you want to see. We pass through all of that metadata as well, where if I click a feature, it displays the summary. But like I said, we really focus on actually automating this process. Kind of what you're seeing here is the way traditional practices work. But the big issue is, well, if I wanted to actually evaluate all these sites, I'd have to turn on a wetlands layer and then trace where those hazards are. And then I'd turn a flood hazard, trace those. And if I wanted to do slope analysis, I'm having to count contour lines. That's really inefficient, even if you have all the data. So what we do is we actually reframed, and we're not a data company, we're a workflow automation company. So what we do is we just hit select all, and we go to buildable area analysis, and we fill in our preferences. So like I said, let's say I wanted to maybe add in, and I needed to have 100-foot setbacks because of that county RFP. I just type that in. I then also want to make sure that my slope is, let's say, less than 7%, and I've determined that anything above 7% will be non-buildable for me. I also want to know where my southern facing slopes are. And I also want to make sure I remove my floods and wetlands. I don't want to bulldoze for a project usually of this size, so I'm going to remove any forested areas. We define that as 50% tree density, but a user can, of course, override that to their preferences. Want to make sure I have enough depth to the bedrock. So let's say I want to make sure that anywhere I build has at least 8 feet depth to bedrock. I type that in. And I also want to remove any critical infrastructure as well. So buildings, public roads, railroads, airport runways. And then we just hit run. So basically what we've done is we've trained our software to automatically be able to look at every single parcel. And it starts out and does a 3D slope analysis of every single parcel to find any area that exceeds that 7% slope that I had typed in. It'll remove that from your buildable area. It'll then do your hydro analysis. It'll remove all floods and wetlands from your buildable area. From there, it will move into analyzing for forested areas. It'll remove anywhere that exceeds that 50% tree density. It'll remove that from your buildable area. It will then do your bedrock analysis to look where anywhere where you have less than 8 feet depth to bedrock. It'll remove that from your buildable area. And then finally, it's going to remove any of the critical infrastructure. So again, buildings, roads, things of that nature, and it'll remove those. It's then going to apply that 100-foot setback that I had determined. And then basically from there, it's going to collate all of that data into a consolidated buildable area calculation and create an associated what's called a constraint map, which you can see those filling in, and do that all in about 15 to 45 seconds. So you can see we've already processed all 31 of those parcels. And we're now at a point where we'd really be able to start drilling in and figuring out which of these sites we like the best. I know I just threw a mountain of information at you there, so I'm actually just going to pause the screen share and give you a chance to ask any initial questions on that.
So are all the dots still viable parcels, or that's still just the parcels?
Great question. So yeah, so those blue dots are really just markers to mark out where these different sites are. So those are more just indication markers. But to give you kind of an idea then of what you're actually seeing here. So you'll see if I look at this parcel, if I click this lime green area, that is my buildable area for the parcel. So a place I could actually put an array. You'll see for this site, I have 124.5 buildable acres, which is 76% of the site. You'll see if I click this yellow, that's an area where my slope exceeds 7%. If I click on this blue, that's a riverine. You can see we've got those setbacks in the blank area. So basically we're mapping out where all of these potential hazards are and then taking that other area that would be buildable and knowing where that is. But yeah, these blue dots are really just like the marker for each of these sites. So you can kind of see them without their boundary.
Got it. And if, so really you're still with your base layer of, okay, these are the parcels of potential interest, and then it's just showing you within each parcel then. I mean, the green area is what you're after, right? The dark green.
Exactly. Yeah, we're really looking for that kind of lime green. But you kind of hit the nail on the head, and that's a really good transition of, okay, well, now it's about, all of these have some buildable area, but it's really about which can I actually do and which are actually viable to get me to that 25 megawatt RFP that I'm trying to think about. And with 30 parcels, I could probably just eyeball that. But if this was 150 parcels, which is frankly very common for our users, we need a way to sift it through it quickly. So then what we can come do is we just come to our parcels section. We go to our filters tab, and we can do things like saying, okay, I only want to find parcels potentially where my buildable area is, let's say, greater than 110 acres. I also want to make sure that it's not patchy because you really want nice blocks of buildable area. You don't want hazards trickled throughout. So I also want to make sure, let's say it's greater than 75% of the parcel is buildable. Just type that in. And when I do that, you can see that very quickly, we're now only left with 5 of those 30 some odd parcels that we had initially had. And our list, as well as our map, are updated to display only those parcels which actually are ideal. And very quickly, when I zoom in, you can see almost unanimously, they all have really high ratios of that green buildable area. And all of them have really nice segments where we could actually put an array. So it's a very rapid way to help identify some of these highest quality sites. Does that all make sense before I move into the next steps, or any questions on that?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm lucky in that I've done a fair amount of GIS work.
For sure.
If you haven't done GIS work, then you're drinking from a bit of a fire
Yeah.
hose. But of course, most developers have some GIS experience depending on exactly what their role is. But
Yeah.
um, so far it seems pretty intuitive, and I immediately grasped the value proposition. So rock
Wonderful.
on.
That's great to hear. Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. And just for the listeners and viewers here who, don't necessarily have a GIS background, the easiest way to think about this is what we've kind of done here is really help to automatically map out from a variety of different data sources where any of these potential hazards are on the site. And if you keep hearing us talk about buildable area, the easiest way to think about that is buildable area is where you could actually put an array. And before you really get your hands on a site, you want to do kind of this what's called desktop analysis or computer analysis to really get an understanding of a site's potential viability before you really start investing time of really digging your hands, digging dirt to really save some costs. So yeah, definitely I know there's a lot of data for probably folks who haven't been in this development, but that's kind of the high level for that group.
And is title information available through your service?
Great question. So titling is a bit different use case. That usually comes a little later stage. So kind of titling land, and things like that, we do not really get into. Those are more kind of detailed land management consultants. We do have a number of informal partnerships in that space. So for our users who are curious about that, we definitely have recommendations for who they can use. And a lot of that output data we can put back in, but titling information at scale is not super viable. Yeah.
Got it.
Yep. So with that then, Tim, I just wanted to do a time check. So with that, we have a number of other advanced features, but I won't get into too many of them. A couple I did want to show is oftentimes for these types of projects is you might find an anchor parcel. So that really means the base of your project. And before I get there too, we do have a simple rating system. So I can rate these parcels. And now if you guys were to log in, or if you came in, Tim, you'd actually be able to see exactly where I left off. So again, really helps with that team sharing. But a lot of times too, is you might actually need to round this project out because oftentimes a project is not going to be relegated to a single site. We have a parcel layer where you can see all of the property boundaries of neighboring parcels. And I can simply click a parcel and hit create. And then you'll see that that is going to automatically be pulled into our project as well. And so we can, oops, sorry about that. I accidentally clicked, but you can see there that that parcel is now brought in. So it's just a really rapid way to then round out and add any of those additional parcels to this project. But the big issue in traditional tools is I now have these two sites that I would be thinking of as a single project, but it's really now two files. In our system, though, we automate that process by I just select both parcels, come back to my Actions tab, and I can do what we call create a super parcel. So I will just call this example super. I hit run. And basically what this is going to do, it's going to take these two disparate individual parcels and combine them into a consolidated project territory, which we can now see in this kind of thicker light blue boundary. And to make it see a little easier, I'll zoom in. You can see we've now properly consolidated these two parcels. And so again, we're really trying to tie the actual platform to the way developers think about it in the real world rather than just in the raw data sense. That all making sense, Tim?
Yep.
Perfect. Then the
In
last piece.
in terms of accessing the tool, I think there's different ways that developers can access the tool. So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's nice about our platform is it is entirely cloud-based. So you can access it anywhere that you have internet connection. And you just simply log into a browser and you simply log on to your account. So you don't have to worry about any sort of downloading onto your company servers. No, none of that. It is all handled externally. It's as simple as opening up Google Chrome, typing in andersonapp.com, logging in, and then you are ready to go. So it's a very accessible platform. And also too, what that cloud nature does is you don't have to manage these projects through email attachments. Traditionally, you see a lot of project divergence because someone has version 1, someone has version 2. In our system, you can just send a link right to your project. So I could just literally copy this, send it to you, and you'd be able to jump in and see exactly where I left off. So team management and team efficiency is a big part of the value we provide.
So it's software as a service on a monthly subscription, but are there other ways that developers can access the tool? Like you mentioned an RFP. If
Mm.
I'm a niche developer and I'm only occasionally going through this process and I don't need monthly access, but I need quarterly access or triannual access, how do you overcome that obstacle?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way our contracts work is that they are on an annual basis. So for companies who only use it once or twice, frankly, they still see the value because they're able to find that one or two projects in a much more rapid time frame. And it really only takes one project to pay for the service for a very significant period of time at that level of scale. So we don't really do the ability of kind of turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off. That just, it makes it inefficient for us to really provide the level of customer service that we do. So
Mhm.
generally what we see is we'll have companies that come on that basis, and their initial goal is to really find a project or two, and we have account sizes that support that type of usage. Our pricing scales based upon the level of size of an account, and then just over time they really grow into it becoming more of a part of their business, because without a tool like this it's really hard to, and here I can pause to so you can see me a little better, but it's really hard to kind of build out something like this on your own in the time investment, whereas we basically give them a very easy avenue to make this a core part of their business in a more ongoing basis. So yeah, we don't really do kind of a month here, month there. They are kind of more on an annual agreement term, but basically by doing this, we allow companies to make it very easily a part of their business in a more consistent manner.
So it's one tool and there's one price. And what is that, the cost?
Yeah, absolutely. So our pricing scales based on the number of users and the number of states that companies have active in the platform. So our
Okay.
base level accounts are one user, two states, or one state, two users. That comes in at $6,900 per year. But then we scale all the way up to our nationwide accounts, which are all 50 states, up to 35 users at $35,000 per year. And then we have an a la carte pricing model in between. But the other nice thing that we do is users are allowed to add, swap, or remove states and users at any time. So you're never locked into markets or an account size that doesn't make sense. Most of our competitors don't really do it that way, but for us, we know how. Like you said, this entire business is so cyclical; it's very geographic. So we
Mhm.
wanted to make sure we offered a business model that tied well to the way users want to do things. So yeah, we definitely offer that level of flexibility as well. And you are right. Right now, it is a single platform, but we are releasing premium products or premium features to the platform as we move forward. In 2021, we're actually going to be releasing a feature that will allow our users to identify and map three-phase and distribution grid infrastructure anywhere in the US on demand. Currently, distribution grid data is a very big black box in the industry, but as things like community solar and distribution interconnection becomes more and more prevalent, it's a big need. So we are excited to really release that, and we'll be literally the first company to offer that at scale. Um, there's one other company that's kind of offering that currently in certain markets, but we're excited to really be able to offer that at a nationwide scale. We also are going to be moving into capacity analysis and things of that nature, energy market analysis, basis risk, curtailment studies, and we'll be moving those into those as we move forward in the future. So while right now we've really focused on the land siting platform and really kind of have this, nice single tool, really as we move forward, we have a nice platform infrastructure that will allow our users to kind of pick and choose from a menu of different items that they'd want included in here.
And what about identifying existing solar and wind assets? Is there a way to use the tool for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So here I can even just show you. So there's lots of different data sets on that. So we have a variety of different power plant layers. We have solar and wind different mappers. So yes, we have a variety of different data sets where you can simply toggle those on. And then if there's any energy infrastructure in the area, you can see. So you'll see here kind of northwest of this section, I have a few different wind turbines and every sort. So yep, we definitely have data on that.
And where does that layer information come from?
Yeah, absolutely. So it comes from a variety of different areas. So that one in particular is from the NACEI. We also have, let me even remember, we have a variety. We have some from the EPA, and then also to the NSRDB, has some solar resource potential. And then the wind turbines come from a variety. So there's US Fish and Wildlife with the FAA, also has a turbine database. And then also there's just a general
Mm.
AWEA type database as well. So, from a variety of sources, but all of our data you can see is live linked in here. So we try to be very open with our data infrastructure. A lot of companies are kind of hold that private, but for us, since we really provide our value more on the workflows rather than the data, we're happy
Yeah.
to make that available so users have a very good understanding of the source.
Okay.
Wonderful. So with that, then, is what I can do is I can kind of share my screen and finish up a couple last steps here. Again, really just covering some of the most basic use cases, but I can go ahead and just round out some of those to really show how we actually transition that back um, into kind of the next phase of the process. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Wonderful. So with that then is, we found these sites. We do have a number of tools to really augment and further update these buildable area calculations, constraint maps. But what I want to actually really do is just focus on actually moving to the next phase. So once you really get to this point, what you're going to really want to be able to do is actually first reach out to these landowners. So once again, let me throw on that filter where I'm just going to filter on my 3-star parcels. So I want to set up a land campaign to actually contact these landowners to really set up a lease so that I can lease their land to put an array here. Just hit this export button. I can select any metrics about that data. Like I said, we have all that address information, property ID numbers, land use codes. Then it's as simple as you hit export Excel. That downloads right to your machine. Additionally, is I also need to lay out my array, and that's usually in other software tools. There's a variety of them on the market, Plant Predict being one, and you need a mapping file to do that. So we export what are called KMLs, which are standard mapping files, where you just click, hit export KML, and you'll see that downloads right to my machine. We can also do that on a macro project basis, where we just come to menu, export KML, and we hit download, and that will download the entire project with all of the grid infrastructure. And then finally, we also offer shapefile exports for mapping, because some companies use more shapefiles than KMLs. And we also have made PDF reporting much more simplistic. GIS tools are notorious for making that difficult. We just hit automated report and run, and our system will basically scan through every site, add some summary information, take an image of the constraint map, the legend, and then put that into a consolidated report. And then with that, our users are able to basically pick the ones they like the best. And then when they reach out to the landowners, they include this PDF file with that mailer. So it really proves they've done some due diligence. Most landowners don't like getting blindly cold called. So this allows them to really prove out that they've actually looked at those sites. So you can actually just see a quick view of that PDF report here, where we've got a parcel for every site, some of the summary detail, and a nice legend. Given our time constraints, I'll probably bypass opening those mapping files in the contact report, but this at least gives you a high-level overview where we had the general area of southern Minnesota. We found some substations to target, pulled in a long list of project opportunities, automatically calculated buildable areas. We're able to filter it down to a short list, add contiguous parcels, update the buildable areas, and then really move into our next phase and really do that whole process in a matter of 10, 15, 20 minutes. So again, a lot more detailed features didn't have time for today, but that at least gives a high level overview of the platform and its capabilities.
Excellent. Was there anything else about the pipeline that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that, I think kind of touched on it, but, we're really excited for that DG feature in particular. By far, when we first started this company, it's been the number one request, number one question we get, do you have DG data? Because frankly, it doesn't really exist. So we're really excited for that to be the first company to really offer that at scale. That'll be released here Q2 of next year. So we're really looking forward to bringing that in. And we're just excited that we've got this nice platform concept where it's going to be continually easy for us to add more and more of these tools that are necessary in the broader development pipeline, so that ultimately we can kind of create this end-to-end development platform where, again, we're starting to dip into capacity and market analysis and also do late stage, ultimately basis risk and injection studies. So companies could basically have one platform for their entire development team to go all the way from early stage market screening all the way through late stage basis risk and congestion analysis in one spot,
Yeah.
and really increase development.
And here in the Midwest, where we have so many co-ops and munis, is there an easy way to include or exclude those territories?
In what's that, in terms of just kind of visualize where those territories are,
Well,
or?
yeah, like if you're doing community solar in Illinois,
Yep.
generally you want to avoid co-ops.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
So yeah, we have a variety of different service territory type layers, co-op layers, so that you know exactly where those boundaries are so that you can actively avoid
mhm.
them. Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, wonderful.
gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I struggle a little bit to ask you pointed questions because I don't know what I don't know, and
For sure. Y-
we were talking a little bit about some of the use cases. Can you say who anything about your customer base, some active partnerships or active users?
Yeah. So I probably can't speak to specific company names in this format. I can say that we are at this point the leader really in this kind of focused early stage development process. We're working with a wide variety of developers, both large and small. We have customers as small as kind of 2-3 person front end development shops. But we're also, the way I would frame it, we're working with many, if not most, of the biggest developers in the country. If you were to look at Solar Power World, the publication that every year they do like a top solar contractors, top solar developer list. If you were to
Yeah.
take kind of their, call it the top 10 and 15 every year, we're working with many, if not a majority of those types of companies. We have several hundred users on the platform on a daily, and using the platform on a daily basis. So yeah, really significant usage. Our growth has been very rapid, especially here in 2020, and have a really significant pipeline. So in this format, I probably can't speak to specific names. If anyone is interested, the way they can reach out to us is andersonoptimization.com is our website. To email me, it is jake@andersonopt.com. And in those formats, would be happy to kind of speak to a little more details, but in a very kind of public format like this, have to be a little more, can't quite be as specific there. But yeah, in general, we've quickly become kind of the leader in this space.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Uh, is there any other way that people should reach out to you directly?
I think probably our website would be the best one. Yeah, so our website, if you go on there, you can actually, if anyone is ever interested in meeting, we do have a self sign up for any sort of meetings where they can just click a time that works and it will automatically set up a time. So really our website, andersonoptimization.com, is probably the easiest way to find us, or again, emailing us either at jake@andersonopt.com or info@andersonopt.com. That'll also get to our team and get a response to you. But really just navigating to our website and it'll really have all of that information there. And yeah, I think to your point about, it's hard to ask the questions that you don't know. I think, one of the most common ones we get is, how are we different than other GIS tools? There are other GIS tools like an ArcGIS, they're the huge GIS platform. The biggest way to think about it and what we really provide is we provide this tool that focuses much more on workflow automation and specifically tailored to a renewable development workflow, rather than just basically being this area where you have a bunch of data stored in a single location, but then you are relegated to doing all the work on your own. And we're basically able to add a lot more efficiency by focusing on reducing the work, not just giving you the raw data, while we also still do that. So everything they do, we do equally as well. But the things that we do well, they really do not type in. So that kind of gives you at least the level of differentiation, even though you're not necessarily as in this market. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I have another question.
Absolutely.
And then we're going to go to a few quick announcements. But
Wonderful.
you know, I've noticed that people rely on the ISO cues to kind of get a bead on what's happening where.
For sure.
Uh, it seems like you're also now sitting on some uh, data, significant quantities of data
Yeah.
that would also give an indicator. Do you ever get requests for just very high level, hey, what's going on in Minnesota, or hey, what's going on in ComEd territory in Illinois, kind of a thing?
For sure. Yeah. So we have gotten those requests. I would say candidly, we consider ourselves a software company. So right now we have not spun up, sort of call it like a consulting division of our company, where we're giving more of these ad hoc sort of insights. We just don't quite have the capacity as a, still a fairly young company to be able to provide that. But yes, you are thinking about it the right way. And as we look at our overall kind of longer term business strategy, is not only are we building up this platform for companies to do this internally, but over time we would have all of the information to really provide some pretty interesting insights. And that'll really come through as we really get more into the modeling space, because a lot of that data that you're referencing is a key input to a lot of our broader modeling capabilities on the capacity analysis, market analysis, injection studies, basis risk analysis. So as we grow, that's exactly where we're going, is being able to key in more to these, call it broader market or grid insights, and really have some forward-looking forecasting that'll be pretty novel in the industry, and put them still into this compelling tool. So exactly where your head is with that question. We get those types of questions all the time. Unfortunately, right now, just given resources, we're still very focused and not really taking on those types of questions. But definitely as we move forward.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jake.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Thank
I
you.
want to encourage our viewers and listeners to check out all our content at cesnrg.com/videos. Hit that subscribe button. That is to our YouTube channel. And if you like the content, please give us a like, share it with your friends. Tell us what you'd like to see more of. We're doing 2 of these interviews every week, plus an edition of the Clean Power Hour with myself and John Weaver, who is a journalist for PV Magazine formerly, and now a solar developer and installer in Massachusetts. So check that out at cesnrg.com/videos. I'm Tim Montague, and I want to thank Jake for coming on the show. Jake Anderson with Anderson Optimization. Thank you so much, Jake.
Oh, absolutely, Tim. No, thank you so much for having me. This was great, and always love to chat on the industry. So, no, this was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage.